Good morning, Borodar, and welcome to Defend Yourself in an increasingly hostile digital world, an official event of Wales Tech Week. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carl Hargrave, and I am founder and director of Security Foundry based in the heart of Wrexham, North Wales. I would personally like to thank you all for investing your time today to join us here this morning, and for you to hopefully learn some valuable lessons that you can take away and start implementing in your own business. I'd like to thank our friends from Technology Connected for helping us market our event as part of this fantastic digital concept and festival, Wales Tech Week, which is a first for Wales. You are joining one of 100 events running this week with nearly 3,000 registered delegates. Quite an achievement considering Wales is only just now reopening after many months. Thanks are also due to our superb guest speaker, Rick Gray from Effective Cybersecurity, who we invited today to join us, offering his expert guidance and valued opinions. Hi, Rick. Would you like to introduce yourself and give us a bit of intro of why you're here today and what you wanted to take part in?
Hi, Carl. Thank you very much. And hi, everybody. And thank you, everybody, for joining this in these strange times that we're experiencing at the moment. Let me introduce myself. I'm Rick Gray. I've been in cybersecurity for around 22 years now. We have a security operations centre which is based just north of Cardiff in Wales, and we're doing huge amounts of good things when it comes to cybersecurity and helping people prevent attacks coming into their environment and just reducing risk. Since COVID, we decided to create a solution, an offering to give something to the community and back to customers and prospects. And Wales Tech Week has kindly invited me to put this offering out there, which is free of charge to help people reduce risk in cyber attacks. Thank you very much, Carl.
Thanks for that intro, Rick. I'm really looking forward to hearing more from you later. So I'm now going to take you through what we do and cover the agenda ahead for the call. So we will share with you who we are, what we do, and why you should consider working with us. We will cover why 2020 has been the perfect storm for cybersecurity risks to be magnified and directly affect your business. We will show you how you can better secure your data. We will do this by showing you visually what a hacker sees when they are looking for gaps in your systems, how they exploit these systems, and how they profile their next company to target. And finally, we will cover what you can do about it and how you can help prevent and minimize risk of attack in your business this summer. So who are we? Before we get going, in terms of letting you know what we do, we will cover this morning a few things about where we're based and how we do these things. Our tagline beneath our Security Foundry branding is your trusted cybersecurity partner. What this actually means is we aren't interested in simply selling products and moving on to the next project or prospect, but we are interested in building lifetime value, becoming a trusted advisor to your business and helping you to align your business strategy to an effective cybersecurity strategy. Trust takes a long time to earn, and we have worked with many organisations here in North Wales and across the UK now for many years, some of whom for over 10 years together, and helping them by delivering value for their business each and every day. This means we are not simply resellers, we are extensions to your business management team. So we're based here in Wrexham in North Wales. We deliver right across the UK. Rick is joining me from the southeast today. As Rick mentioned, we have a security operating centre, or a SOC, is based just outside Cardiff. We're both certified IBM and Microsoft business partners, and we have over 20 years IT and cybersecurity expertise. Our background's been in IT managed services, and we focus on delivering security solutions to business management systems. We have a proven track record with clients in small, medium-sized businesses, corporate and enterprise marketplaces. We are both Wales Technology Awards and Wales Startup Awards finalists 2019 and 2020. So what do we do? Today we will help you understand what preventative maintenance you can undertake and mitigate the real risks of sharing data and working in the cloud, on mobile and on premise. We work with businesses to help them become more resilient. We look to continually improve and assess the work we do, building trust in our capabilities in the services we deliver, helping you take necessary preventative actions before they become a breach or potential attack. And how we do this is that we deliver cyber and IT security strategies aligned to your business strategy. We deliver a wide range of modular cyber managed services specific to your needs in your organization. And we deliver this in either an assisted or a full managed cybersecurity model. So what assisted means is that we work with you, we train the users that will be managing the software, we configure the systems, and we help deploy it, but you run it yourself. And then other organizations will work with us and say they want us to take a full managed cybersecurity responsibility. So we take care of both the implementation and the ongoing support. We provide specific solutions. So today we're focusing on external vulnerability services. We utilize ITIL best practice standards for both project management and methodology. And the engineers, the analysts and the consultants that we have in our team have the highest possible accreditations and standards. So why consider working with us? We've worked with IBM for over 15 years and are recognized IBM business partners and Microsoft partners. We constantly assess security products in the marketplace, challenging the status quo and benchmarking technologies in our own bake-offs. This means that when we recommend technology to you, you can be sure we have faith and confidence in its ability to deliver the service and experience required. Our vision and ambition is to become North Wales's leading cybersecurity business partner. And we do this by using Gartner Magic Quadrant leading technology. Gartner is world recognized as the leading provider of analyst research, and the Magic Quadrant is their way of putting all of the technologies in the marketplace onto a board. We only use the top right corner quadrant of that technology. We have a lot of relationships with trusted global partners for many years, and we work with strategic partners that give us both scale and ability to reach across the UK. We focus on your requirements as opposed to the products themselves. So we are requirements proposition led. And we have an unswerving focus on customer service and customer experience. And we focus on delivery outcomes every day. So we've covered introductions. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take you through what we will cover in the call. So 2020 has brought us what we believe is the perfect storm. So why has 2020 been such a perfect storm? Well, there have been a number of contributing factors all coming together at exactly the same time. There's been a huge growth in the new malware detected each day. We believe there's something in the excess of 400,000 new variants detected per day that are released into the worldwide. And what this essentially does is it increasingly reduces the effectiveness of your traditional cybersecurity technologies. There's been an explosive growth in phishing attacks, and at over 4,300% in 2020 alone, according to IBM. So think of all of the HMRC, COVID support, business application, fraudulent applications that are going on out there. This is part of it. Combined with this, there's been 5 years of digital transformation has taken place in less than 5 weeks. Some businesses and some offices will never reopen, and businesses will certainly never look the same again. That, combined with the fact that the UK has furloughed 9 million people, and that includes many hundreds of thousands of people in IT. The new ways of working are still wide open to compliance issues. Think about the fact that we're only 2 years post GDPR being enforced, but also think more recently about the new track and trace systems that the government launched, then failed to launch, and all the ongoing issues around data capture forms, for example, in pubs. Combined with this, there's a drive from people moving from their traditional on-prem offices to now working in the cloud and from home. And there have been very public breaches for some of these platforms. Today we're using a secure Zoom call, but Zoom had a number of privacy breaches back in April. Think about the resources or lack of to assist with migrations to the cloud and the difficulty your business would have if you're all physically based at home. Combine that as well with the fact that different data has different value. So protecting your greatest assets, your intellectual property, your inventions, are all now increasingly under global attack. We've recently worked with a North Wales manufacturer who wanted to protect their greatest assets, which were essentially their years of innovation and technology. Also consider that 2020 has brought us the cancel culture revolution. So social media posts are now ending careers, bringing actions made outside the organization into the public eye like never before. And they're creating digital business interruptions like cyber attacks in their scale and their speed. And 5G itself isn't even here yet. And there's ongoing public security spats around Huawei and other providers. So you need to understand that all of these factors are going on right now, and you must be able to protect your business, your data, your brand, and you need to safely navigate through all of these hazards. So how have we responded? Well, with such a deluge of combining forces and factors all arriving at the same time, how can you possibly respond? I'm now going to pass you back to Rick for him to explain how we've recognized these warning signs for business, how we've listened to customers' needs during this time, and how we've responded to these challenges in a timely fashion with a new platform designed to be easy to use, intuitive, and focus on your business priorities.
Thank you, Carl. Much appreciated. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. So I just wanted to add to some of the things that Carl was saying there. We have seen a huge increase in cyber attacks, whether that's via email, network, application, multiple different threat vectors there are on the network. We who own the network and run the network as a business, then we have to look at all the areas across the network that an attacker may be able to come in at. So we're trying to protect multiple areas. Sometimes we're looking at protecting the application, we're protecting the perimeter with firewalls, we're protecting the endpoint, we're protecting our emails, we're protecting as many things as we can, sometimes 20, 30, 40 areas of the network to stop an attacker who only needs one area to get in. So it's quite challenging for any organization. One, it becomes quite expensive. Two, it becomes very complex and you need the skill sets to actually manage those tools or systems that you're putting in place. And we all know there's a shortage in cybersecurity skilled resource out there. We seem to see the majority of the big banks, government organizations snapping up all of the skilled cybersecurity resource or people out there. So what we created was a security cyber operations management reporting dashboard. It's all about cyber risk. If we can identify the most risky areas within our network, then we focus in those particular spaces to mitigate that risk or minimize that risk. Now, the hardest area is trying to identify that risk in the first place. So what we've done is we come up with a dashboard. Now, we originally worked with a very large energy organization in the UK. They don't mind me naming them, which is National Grid. And we created this cyber risk dashboard for them, and the information goes to their government liaison officer, and they then pass a lot of the information, the risk information that we produce through this dashboard, to the Cabinet Secretary, National Cyber Security Centre, GCHQ, and it also goes to the FBI and the CIA and many other energy bodies in the US, because National Grid are much bigger in the US than they are in the UK. Now, they are the most important infrastructure in our country. Without National Grid, if we lost them, we wouldn't have any electricity anywhere across the country. So they are the government's #1 concern to cyber attacks. So they are heavily governed. So we go through these widgets very quickly. We have an estate overview, which I will drill down into in more detail. And that gives us an overview of the estate, the types of applications that we're running, any vulnerabilities that we're seeing that we might need to prioritize, the types of malware. And this is customizable dashboard for any executive to look at it and visualize where their risk is. We want to identify all the business applications because these are important to our business, and we want to make sure that there's no back doors open that could be exploited. And then we want to understand the most critical applications, because in an event of an attack, we would want to bring those most critical or important applications back up and running first, to make sure that we're minimizing the amount of damage that's done to the organization. Then we look at the vulnerabilities, and the easiest way of explaining the vulnerabilities is if I'm at home and I'm in bed at night and I've left my window on safety, I've left the back door slightly ajar or open. These are all vulnerabilities that a burglar could come and exploit, and he will walk around my house, he'll try the handle on the door, he'll look at the window and think, oh, that's ajar, I can prise that open, that's easy, there's my vulnerability to exploit. So we're looking for those weaknesses when we're looking at vulnerabilities. We have other areas of antivirus, so we want to make sure all of our antivirus are up to date, because if they're not up to date, they'll look at the signature database of known viruses or malware or malicious content, and if we don't update it, there could be a new virus, which you heard from Carl. There are so many out every single day. A lot of them are morphed, and if you don't update your antivirus, you are potentially a sitting duck. Malware, so we want to identify the different types of malware that are coming across onto the network, and working out whether or not we've got effective enough controls or tools or antivirus or endpoint detection response tools to identify those specific types of malware. We're not just looking at the basic types, but we're looking at the types of ransomware that are really going to damage our business. Perimeter scanning, I won't go into detail on this. I've got some slides on the presentation, and we'll cover this at the end, because this is the free service that we're offering out to customers and prospects. We've had a lot of people join this service, and they're getting huge amounts of value out of it. So I will show that. And that's also the web application side of it. Threat landscape, so we want to understand where the threats are coming from, where the attacks are coming from. There's people out there, you've probably all heard of the group called Anonymous. There are huge amounts of different threat actor groups, is what we call them. Fancy Bear, many others. They've got lots of different names, but they're all specific about the types of attacks that they do. So one may be good at creating email attacks, one may be really good at doing database SQL or application attacks or DDoS attacks. They all put their hands up and claim they are the best at something. So if we understand who the attackers are, we can then understand the types of tactics that they use, and that helps us then prevent them coming in and attacking you. Email, so we want to understand what's going on in our email environment. Are we at risk there? What types of attacks are coming on? Are people clicking on phishing attacks and opening up emails they shouldn't be doing? Do we need to give some security awareness training to them? How do we identify that? And then we look at the security posture. We have lots of organizations out there that follow different types of frameworks. You may have heard of some which are NIST, MITRE ATT&CK, ISO 27001, Cyber Essentials, all of those different types of frameworks. So if you are following a framework, which I strongly advise every organization to do, you know where you're weak in that particular framework, so that you can then increase your maturity levels and adhere to those frameworks. Because if you do, what that's really going to help you with is you're not going to be fined from the Information Commission's Office, because you've done everything that's been recommended by these types of frameworks. So as long as you follow the guidance that's given, then the risk of a fine is way lower. And then we have the adversary tracker, which I'll go into more detail, which is about identifying the different types of tactics that we're seeing on your network, to really start to show you where you're weak. Like, for instance, you've got your window ajar at night, we may advise you to pull that to and lock it, but that it will become more apparent. So let me jump straight into the estate overview. And so here we've got two of our office locations. We've got an office location in England, and then we've got in Wales, and we're comparing the two there. And as you can see, just at a glance, we've got a number of hosts that we've got, which are the servers that are running the applications. We know that they've got vulnerabilities. So we got 4,488 vulnerabilities, and some people might think, well, that's a hell of a lot. That's not a lot of vulnerabilities. We come across all different size organizations. It doesn't matter how big you are. We've had some very small organizations where we've identified nearly 40,000 vulnerabilities. So how do you prioritize those, and how do you remediate them is the issue, and having the resource. So realistically, you want to focus on the most critical vulnerabilities and patch those as quickly as possible, or remediate them. So here we can see an overview of the antivirus and which ones are compliant, i.e. up to today's date, the update, the patch, today's that file. And which ones are non-compliant, because if Carl is the one that's in administration and should be looking after patching these machines, I will be saying to Carl, you've got 9 servers there, Carl, that are not compliant. I suggest you focus your efforts in those areas and bring them up to a compliancy level. Over here, we got the workstations. So again, we can start to see in a nutshell which ones are compliant and which ones aren't, so we can focus our efforts on the ones that aren't. And then this is just within Wales, I'm just showing a different type of dashboard, because it's customizable, so any organization can say to us, actually, I'm really interested in all the malware detections that we've got this week. So then we can produce those into the dashboard quite easily. This dashboard runs on Microsoft Power BI. So it's really easily customizable, and we pull all the information in from your network, from your devices, straight into the dashboard, and then we create these visualizations, and it's quite simple to do. So here you can see the detections within our Wales site. We have 2 different malware detections this week versus the week before, or other different types of malware detections. So we got 24 there. We can look at the critical applications. Where are our vulnerabilities? So we know there are 239 servers running our critical applications, and we have quite a high number of critical vulnerabilities across there. Let me jump straight into the critical applications. These are the most important applications to your business. These are the ones that make you money, or if they don't run, you're not making money. So what we're trying to do is to get a view of exactly what's going on across our applications. The data here is dummy data. This would be a location of where the server is or where the application is. This would be the name of the application, and you can see here how many servers that application or VMs that's running across. We have a summary down this left-hand side. Normally this would be producing the amount of malware detections that we would see. There would be a number here in the real live data. So it would tell you exactly how many vulnerabilities, how many malware detections we've seen across those hosts in particular. We want to bring in production environment, pre-production, test and dev, backup environments, because hackers don't care. They don't care whether it's a production environment, a test and dev. Majority of organizations will leave test and dev slightly segregated from the main network. But normally, because it's test and dev, they are particularly vulnerable. So an attacker would really try to get into test and dev and then try and get into the production environment after that. We're seeing the amount of vulnerabilities here across the particular host or IP address. We have a number of uptime here, so we can see how long that service has been running for from a health perspective. And over here we have the CVEs. And I'm not too sure if everybody's aware of what a CVE is. If there was a virus, I'm going to pick on WannaCry because everybody's probably heard of WannaCry. WannaCry would have a number of different strains to it, just like the coronavirus has a number of different strains, the SARS, the COVID-19, etc. And they put a code to it, COVID-19. And this is a code or identification code for the different strain of malware or virus. So it's easy for you to then go and pull the information about that particular strain so that it can give you remediation advice or description of exactly what this particular strain of virus does. I'm going to go into these state vulnerabilities. We're pulling information from a vulnerability scanner. We don't really care what vulnerability scanner it is. We're vendor agnostic or vendor independent. There's vulnerability scanners like Tenable, Qualys, Nessus, OpenVAS. There's many out there, Rapid7s of the world. We don't really care what scanner it is. All we need is the information out of it. We ingest the information out of the scanner, and then it provides all of the vulnerabilities. I'm just going to refresh this page quickly. So you can see here with this data, we've got 409 servers that have got vulnerabilities out of the 5,273 servers that we're running here. It tells you over this side the actual server name. So we have the naming convention. We pull all the naming conventions and everything into the dashboard, and we can start to see the operating system that it's running on. We can see over here the type of vulnerabilities that we've got, the medium type of vulnerabilities, what that vulnerability is. We have the CVE count down here on the left-hand side, so the strains, the identification to those CVEs. And then we have all the AV non-compliant servers down here, which would be at high risk. The different types of malware detections that we've seen across which servers are identified here. So we have some Trojans, for instance. And then we have a filter up here on the right-hand side so that we can then start to drill down, and we can say, I'm only interested in seeing servers, applications in Wales, and I'd like to dig down into those vulnerabilities. The other things that we have here that we can slice and dice is you may choose to see critical applications only and drill down into those. Different types of OS you might be interested in, so you may just want to select Windows because it might be Patch Tuesday. Microsoft Patch Tuesday come out and we want to identify just our Windows machines. the different types of vulnerability from a risk rating score. So it may be, Carl, I just want you to focus on the high ones today, and then we click on the high and it drills down all of the vulnerabilities at a risk rating of high. The other area I really like is you can choose an attack campaign. So we mentioned WannaCry, which was quite a prevalent ransomware attack, and there's huge amounts of different strains of it these days. We're still seeing it on people's networks. Attackers are very successful with WannaCry. And ransomware is, if everybody's not aware, I send some malware into you, it locks all of your files, and I encrypt them all so you can't get them back. And if you want them back, you're going to have to pay me $150 per file you want. Now, we are starting to see organizations bring in ransomware into their budgets, so they can then pay the demand. And I personally think that's a bad idea. We've had organizations pay the demand and still not get their data back. And we've had people that pay the demand, get their data back, and then 2 weeks later they're hit again because the hackers know they're going to pay them again. So I would seriously suggest, if it comes to ransomware, you make sure you have your backups secure so that you're doing them regularly, you're testing them to make sure there's no errors or failures with it, and you are testing to restore to make sure that in an event where you do get an attack of ransomware, then you can pull the plug and then you can go to your backups and restore. Now, it's important to take regular backups because ransomware we normally see coming into organizations where they put a dropper in. So it may be the case that I'm hit with ransomware today, but the attacker has been in 3 months ago and dropped the ransomware in there. And it's literally a dropper ready to be weaponized, and then they click the button and it encrypts all your files. So in that case, you would have to go back 3 months. And we've had organizations that have to look, they've lost 3-4 months worth of data. So if we choose WannaCry, as we've just clicked on there, we now know with our dashboard where we are vulnerable to a WannaCry attack. Now, whether that's over the application or the actual host, the hardware itself, we know that we have vulnerabilities. We have 127 servers that are vulnerable to a WannaCry ransomware attack. And if we click over here, we can see the CVE, the identification of it. And this link here would take us directly to the National Vulnerability Database website that's run with, that's supported by NIST. Now, this is every single vulnerability or identification CVE code in a database that is shared globally. So it gives us a current description of what that vulnerability is. It gives us a critical rated severity rating, score rating. So we can see here this is 8.1, and then we have many references and advisories and solutions and tools that are recommended for you to go and use to help you remediate. And then sometimes in some of the CVEs there's forums or blogs in there where people talk about their experiences with it, the tools that they use, how they found them to be, and it really helps you fix the problem as quickly as possible to minimize the amount of damage that's done. Let's go to the antivirus page. Again, here we should be staying on top of antivirus. I don't think I've come across any organization yet that actually has all of their antivirus up to date. It's really important. And down here we have what we call an N-19. A particular client has said they want to run to an N-5, meaning today's revision -5. They're calling compliant. So I'm going to then say to Carl, why are we 19 revisions behind on this particular server? I suggest you go and remediate all of these and bring them up to at least an N-4 or 5. So it just helps you visualize where your weaknesses are in your organization so you can quickly go and remediate those particular ones. Rather than having to do a scan, having to pull all the information in, putting it into a spreadsheet, filtering it, we can just do it very quickly. Let's look at the malware. I really like the malware page because in cybersecurity we generate a lot of information, and in the industry we call it noise or false positives. You may have heard of, and the trouble is we spend an awful lot of time looking at those false positives and ruling them out to say, okay, it's a false positive. It's not a major issue. Now, if you had a CISO or somebody that's head of cybersecurity, they would normally have to report back to the business where they're at risk and provide the evidence to them to say, look at our malware. We've got huge amounts of malware coming in. We've seen 60 reported threats, 65 different malware detections. The antivirus or endpoint security tool that we've got is not effective enough. Here's the evidence. We're letting all of this in. So I'm going to build a business justification as to why we need to replace that. And this particular customer replaced theirs, and then you could start to see that there was a reduction in the malware that was coming across. So then that's also helping to provide a return on investment around the security, which is inherently difficult to do. And if I wanted to create a report or the evidence to take to the person that signs the check or the board, it would take me huge amounts of time to collate that information, because I'm going to be pulling spreadsheets from everywhere, trying to pull all those spreadsheets into one spreadsheet. I talk to CISOs on a regular basis, and some of them have said it takes 80% of their time up to do this. We have the evidence, it's there. It's in a dashboard. So this helps those CISOs reduce their time by anything up to 50 to 80% we're seeing. And it puts that information in a language that's understandable by everybody within the organization, because it's visual rather than technical information. So normally you're trying to take this technical information, how do we produce that in a language that's understandable by the board or anybody else in risk or any area of the business? And the best way to do it is visualizing it. This is the perimeter scanning, which I'll cover in a moment when we go back to the slide, and that's a free service that I want to show you. We have the threat landscape, and this difference between every organization. We have what you can see here, as I mentioned, the threat actor groups that we believe that could be behind the attacks or the indicators of compromise that we're seeing. So you can see the different types of names of these. We've got Fancy Bear, we've got Hidden Cobra, Group 74. There's the Fancy Bear one, Energetic Bear. There's huge amounts. This is a massive business. These threat actor groups, they are way more organized than our businesses are. They have a CEO, they have a chief technical officer, they have a marketing department to go and produce and send all the information across the dark web so they can sell it and produce money. They have finance people. They are groups, they are organized businesses. So they like to put their name to it. They like to get the kudos for doing the certain things that they do. So what we're doing here is we're looking at the indicators of compromise, and an indicator of compromise might be as simple as Carl coming into our UK office and swiping the door entry card there. So it brings a log and it shows him coming into the business. But all of a sudden, we're seeing him in our Wales office in the security operations center logging in on his machine. How can he be in the same location at the same time? The likelihood is he's probably swiped the door entry card and gone in, but somebody has compromised his credentials and logging in on his machine, or a machine using his credentials down in Wales. These are indicators of compromise that then need further investigation to identify exactly the who, what, when, and how is going on. And it's that kind of information you now need to produce today if you want to minimize your risk of a fine from the Information Commission's Office, which your fine will go to the Treasury. And they can fine anything up to 5% of the business's revenue now, if you are deemed to be negligent. So we produce these events and all of this information in here so that this is a ticketing system. It links to, this particular one was linked to a ServiceNow account. So any tickets that are open for a long period of time, me as a CISO or head of cybersecurity is going to go to Carl again. Sorry, Carl, I'm picking on you today. It's going to go to Carl and say, Carl, why has this been open for 102 days? What do we need to do to close this one off? What's the next steps? Just staying on top of things. If you want to, we can start to drill down into specific countries. These, Russia, North Korea, China are the worst places at the moment for cyber attacks. So we could just click on it, drill down, and we can see all the different types of activity coming out of China into our network. We may want to drill down and look at a specific threat actor group, and we can just click on one, and then it could drill down into just what they're doing. So we have email. Let's move to email. There has been something, I heard something like, and I don't know how true it actually is, but I heard it was like 4,500% increase in attacks since COVID. I can quite believe it because it's very easy for me to pretend to be somebody else and spoof somebody else, and maybe I'll spoof the CEO of your organization and then send out an update on the COVID policy without you actually looking at the email and identifying that the I in Rick is a 1 or an L. You wouldn't be able to identify, and a lot of these viruses will come through, or phishing attacks will come through security tools. So it's human error. So we want to try and remove human error. So what we're doing here is we're looking at the types of emails that are coming over. We can then start to provide information on how many phishing attacks come in, whether it's Carl that keeps opening them, so we might need to spend some time with him, advising him on security awareness, which not only is going to help him in his business work life, but also he can take that information home and tell his family and friends. So now he's educating them as well. The more people that are educated here, the better, because us as humans, we're the weakest link in this chain. We can put as much prevention in place on the network and security tools in place, but if I'm going to go and click on things and open things that have come from reputable organizations, then I'm allowing the attack in. So this particular customer wanted to understand where their emails are coming from, because they don't have a supply chain, no customers in any of these areas. So why is somebody emailing someone in Sierra Leone? What is that information that's going out there? Is it an attack that we've not identified and they're exfiltrating information or data out of the business via email? We can start to look at the number of connections and messages for that day or date range, and we can change that date range if we want to, so we can start to drill down into it a bit more. We have some organizations that want the different types of attacks, whether it was somebody that clicked on a suspicious link, whether they clicked on a phishing attack, or whether they opened an attachment that had malicious content in it, just so that we can start to monitor the effectiveness of our security controls that we're putting in place. If we move to the security posture. Now, this is where I mentioned about the frameworks, and some of the frameworks that we have are, this one in particular is called NIST, and it's very well known. And it has the different pillars there that you can see: identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. And what we're doing is, these here are where we are in terms of, ideally, that is that is where you want to be, but we're set a benchmark of trying to get to forecast into this area. If we can increase our score to be up here, then we're increasing our maturity when it comes to cybersecurity. And underneath each pillar, you have these initiatives, risk management strategy. So for Carl, I could go to Carl and say, we're not doing any risk management strategy. We need to start doing some risk management so that we can identify where we're risky and put a process in place, so then that matures us. So this really helps you monitor your performance against frameworks and your areas of weakness, areas where you need to improve. And then down here, we can put the actual proposed initiatives you've got in place, the planned ones, in flight, and the ones that you completed. Let's go to the adversary tracker. Now, this is called the kill chain. And Lockheed Martin created the kill chain. And really, the reason why they created the kill chain was because an attacker has to go through every single one of these areas for him to be successful in his attack. So we start with reconnaissance. So that's me thinking, I'm going to go and attack Security Foundry. What do I need to do? Let's find out as much information as possible about this person. You may have seen the Barclay Digital Eagles advert on the TV, where they're looking at Facebook, they're looking at all people's social media, they see that somebody's taken a picture in front of their house, they got the number in the picture. You may find that someone's posted a picture and got the credit card or their security fob lanyard, for instance, which has got their picture on it. Anything like that, they're going to do as much reconnaissance as possible. Or I'm going to work out that I know that Carl likes to go to Snowdonia, so I'm going to send him an email. I'm going to send him an email with a free train trip up to the top of Snowdonia. And I know he loves Snowdonia so much, there's a high percentage he's going to click on that email. Once he's clicked on that email, I'm now weaponizing. I'm going into the weaponization stage. So I'm now weaponizing that and putting a dropper into the network, ready to download a payload with more information in it. And then I'm going to deliver it. I'm going to deliver it in a way via a spear phishing link or any other different type of vector that I'm going to use. And then we've got the exploration. So this is now exploring the network. I'm looking at running PowerShells. I'm looking at how I can execute this thing. I'm trying to get as many credentials as possible. And by the way, every single machine on the network stores username and passwords. So if I can get to one of those machines, I can then start to collate all the usernames and passwords. And now as a hacker, I'm looking for that administration access, so I can go anywhere and everywhere on the network. Once I've installed the malware, I've now opened up a backdoor. I can then start to do command and control. I can start to do lateral movement through the network and sniff everything out without even being identified. And then I can hit my objection and I can either exfiltrate information. So that is the kill chain. They have to go through every single process of that. Now, from our perspective, we want to try and identify these different types of activities early on in the kill chain, because then it lowers our risk. But here we can start to see that the attackers are using different technical tactics and procedures, the TTPs are called, and they're using 8. But we've only got controls in 2 of those areas. So we are extremely weak in that area. That helps you get the information, the evidence that you need to then use that and give it to the powers above and say, we need to improve this particular area now. This is the overall posture. So this is the overall posture of the organization, the threat landscape to the business. And ideally, we want to be a bit higher than 62%. We also have we click the button at the top here and then it gives a kill chain, not kill chain, sorry, a MITRE attack. The MITRE ATT&CK is a framework that people follow, and it gives you advice on what you should do in every single area: initial access, execution, persistence, privilege escalation. And over here, we're really highlighting the information or the areas of where people, our customers or people using the dashboard, don't have effective controls in place. So, for instance, 50% lateral movement, they're only identifying half of the capabilities that attackers could use. So we really need to suggest that they improve their visibility on lateral movement. So that's the overall dashboard. It's really to put all the information in one place. We don't expect customers to take the whole dashboard in one go, but what we do seem to have a large amount of is people taking it for certain areas or elements of the dashboard. They get used to using that, and then they might want to bring some of the other areas in once they can see that it's a value to them. This is all done as a subscription model on a monthly basis as well. I'm going to go back to, I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment, and I'm going to go back to the presentation. And by the way, if anybody has any questions or anything, then just fire away, and we can get those questions answered for you. So at the beginning of COVID, we saw the NHS doing some wonderful and great things, and all the key workers and central workers, and we thought, right, what can we do? Because we've seen a huge increase in attacks. And one of the main areas of attacks that we were seeing was the people trying to get remote workers, people working from home. So businesses were spending an awful lot of time in that area, but relaxing their security or creating remote access to these locations and relaxing their security. And what that did is that opened up back doors for hackers. And we saw an awful lot of customers opening up their complete network to the outside world. And we've had to say to them, you need to do this, that, this, and that. And we would help them through this process. So what we did is we have a security dashboard, which you've just seen. And an element of that was our perimeter scanning. So we're scanning your network from the outside world. That's like me coming up to your house and trying all your doors and windows and everything, chimneys, garage, whatever it may be. How can I get in? We're doing that free of charge for customers at the moment. So what we're doing here is we scan all the external facing systems, any websites, any portals, any blogs, anything like that at all. And then we show them the vulnerabilities that we can see. And then you get your link to the National Vulnerability Database down here. So go to the next slide. And again, we can start to slice and dice things down. So it could be a particular criticality that you want to look at. And you can see that this has a CVSS scoring mechanism, which is run by the National Vulnerability Database, and 10 being high, 0 being very low. Here we give a synopsis of the actual vulnerability itself, the solution, and if there isn't the information, you can click on this link here, and again, it will take you to the National Vulnerability Database. But it just gives you an overview of all the hosts. These are the servers that were running your applications, websites, etc. And this is a lot of attackers get in this way these days. Here's a vulnerability database. You've seen that already, so I won't spend too much time on that. And we're running this service free until the end of August at the moment, but likely to extend it. The other area is emails that have been compromised. So if any organization gives us all of their email addresses, we can put them into the dashboard, and then we can highlight how many emails there are, how many of those have been breached before, and you can start to see where they were breached, the type of compromised data sets that they've got, so whether it's email addresses, passwords, usernames. And I don't know if anybody's used Have I Been Pwned before, but we're pulling information and using that tool, and we created automation with it. So in this instance, a particular user, Carl, has gone to MySpace, it's been compromised, there was email addresses, passwords, usernames, and I'm going to say to Carl, where else have you used that username and password? If you have, you've got to go and change it because you are compromised. This is all a free service that we're offering out at the moment. We can give, again, we can slice and dice, we can look for certain areas or certain users, we can drill down into different data types that have been compromised. And this gives you the description. In October 2013, 150 million Adobe accounts were breached, with each containing an internal ID, username, email, encrypted passwords, and password hints in plain text. Anybody can use this service. Thank you very much. Hopefully that's been a bit of an insight on how you can identify risk to the business around cyber attacks.
Rick, that's been absolutely fantastic. Incredibly powerful insight to how businesses can, I suppose, really assess the scale of the task in hand of keeping their businesses secure. So really appreciate you taking the time to go through all of the powerful features of the management dashboard,
No problem.
the insight tool. If you just move on to one screen for me, we've got a closing slide now for everyone. If you just move on just to one screen, if you can, Rick, seems you've got the control. Perfect. If you let that build up, essentially what we're saying to people is, you've got this service, the scanning service, available until the end of August. To access this service, come to our website. There's a dedicated page, some PDFs, some information around it. Express a requirement and a request to work with us to do this. We will set up everything for you fully remotely, and the only thing that we ask in terms of commitment is your time to the process to get the maximum value of this service for the period that you've got it. So we spotted that we're running out of time. There have a few questions popped up, but I think we can answer those during the engagement. So if you want to move ahead, simply visit securityfoundry.co.uk, find the scanning service page and fill out the form, and we will set up everything for you remotely on this process. So thank you all very much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, and we look forward to engaging with you after today. Make sure you go on to attend more events on Wales Tech Week. Thank you very much.